All right, let's be perfectly honest here. When we originally heard about the Guardians of the Galaxy video game, we all immediately thought about the Avengers video game. And we all just shook our heads and said, oh my gosh, are we really doing this again? Don't you look at me. You know I'm telling the truth. No. We all thought it. Every single one of us thought it. I don't care what you say. Every single one of us thought about it. So, how does it really turn out now? What's going on, guys? Tallen here of Five Night Gaming Direct, and today, just like we stated just a minute ago, we are here to review Guardians of the Galaxy. This has had a lot of people scratching their heads when it was first announced. Some gameplay snippets here and there, some previews and everything, made it really actually look like a decent game. But now it's officially here. It is time to see, is it a masterpiece, a very good game, a so-so game, or is it just mediocre? Let's take a look. But before we get into it though, if you enjoy the video, please make sure to leave a like and a comment down below on your thoughts on the game itself. And also don't forget to subscribe and turn on the bell for notifications to stay up to date with everything we post here on the channel. So with all that being said, let's get into the review. Moving on to presentation, in terms of the graphics, the game looks and runs pretty good actually, but we did run into a few crashes, so do keep that in mind here when it comes to our personal play sessions. On the PlayStation 5, it's what you'd expect for the next generation consoles. The environments are diverse, the character models are very expressive, and overall just looks really good. Honestly, there's really no underlying complaints here. The game looks good, just, it didn't really blow our minds, I guess is what we could say. A little short and sweet for our presentation portion here for our reviews, but hey, who's really picking this game up for the graphics? Oh, wait. Yeah, that's what I thought. Well, let's move on. All right, time for my personal favorite part of any review, and that is the gameplay. As previously mentioned, players will control Peter Quill about 99% of the time. Now, this may be a disappointment to some people, and it may actually not be a disappointment, depending on who you are. Some people really wanted to play as the other members of the Guardians, but other people are saying, you know what? I'm fine with Star-Lord. He's my favorite character out of the bunch, so personally, I didn't mind. So regardless, you have to see how it goes. Star-Lord is able to fly, punch, shoot, and with that shoot, actually, he's able to command a bunch of different elemental blasts being at his disposal. He can also order teammates around to dish out basic attacks and special attacks. Each of the other CPU-controlled Guardians come with their own distinctive movesets, so even though you're not actually really controlling them per se, they do have their own distinctive moves and just how things work. For example, Rocket specializes in AoE moves with his grenade launcher, while Groot gives you some defensive options, holding enemies in place so that Star-Lord can just unload his blasters for some easy hits. He can even actually bring Quill back from the dead, which is pretty nice. Drax is good for staggering multiple foes, while Gamora unleashes her fury into a single baddie, annihilating their health just like an assassin would. To really wreak some havoc though, Quill can gather all of his allies into a huddle, think football style, to let loose some devastating damage while giving some encouraging words to his teammates, like a true leader would. This is also where players get to choose one of the many 80s songs that we talked about beforehand. During combat, players will have to be mindful of the terrain and everything else on screen, as well as the alien baddies that are in front of them. With one wrong move, you'll be taking damage from the hazards like electrical mines and other traps. Beyond that, there's stagger meters to pay attention to, health, and shield pickups as well. However, you might want to try avoiding these sometimes. This is because Quill, as the money-hungry mercenary that he is, will pick up any shiny health pickups within range. However, sometimes you might not be low on health just yet, and so you might want to try to avoid it, but then it goes away actually. They don't stick around like they do in other games, so that's definitely an issue here. One other complaint that a lot of people have been saying online so far and in other reviews is that the Guardians, and when it comes to reviving the player. Sure, if you're a god and you never go down, you don't have to really worry about this. But if you do, your life is now in the hands of your teammates who are AI, and it sometimes feels as if they don't care if to actually revive you, which maybe it kind of works because in character, they kind of be like, you know what? We don't care about you, Peter. So it is what it is, but kind of an interesting design, I guess. We'll have to see if they patch that in the future. Besides ground combat, there's also space battles, which is a nice change of pace, actually. It has some heckling segments and environmental puzzles, remnant of detective mode segments from the Batman Arkham games, which is pretty cool. These portions of the game aren't exactly the selling point, but they're nice additions to have nonetheless. Outside of combat, players can explore the Milano, the Guardian ship, which acts as kind of the hub, where you can learn a thing or two about each member. And after a couple hours of knocking heads with various aliens, players will accumulate ability points. These points can be used to upgrade Star-Lord and the other Guardians based on the playstyle you prefer. Each Guardian has 4 abilities that can be enhanced, so make sure you pick the one that best suits you. Players can also craft some perks and new gear for additional bonuses at the workbench with resources they've collected throughout their travels. One of the best ways to really enjoy the combat in this game is to kind of think of it like the Final Fantasy VII Remake, where, yeah, you're playing as one character for the most part, and obviously there are some differences when it compares to Final Fantasy VII versus the Guardians of the Galaxy in terms of how you control your other teammates and everything, but try not to focus only on Quill. You want to make sure you're using the rest of your teammates' attacks, whether they're basic, super, regardless, to really get the full potential out of this combat system. But by combining the different abilities to your fellow Guardians, momentum bar will fill, and when maxed out, players can deploy a call to action move which deals massive amount of damage. It's really cool to look at, and it's really fun to pull off. All right, let's jump straight into the design. So, needless to say, if you have enjoyed any of the Guardians of the Galaxy movies from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you'll definitely feel right at home with this title. Hell, you can even customize the 5 characters you have to make them match exactly what you see in the original movie by James Gunn. It's nice to know that Square gives players access to the MCU costumes at launch, and they even come free of charge as collectibles, unlike a certain Avengers game where you either need to fork over the cash or just on an endless grind. I mean, I've heard horror stories about the grind when it comes to that personal game. The game does a good job of capturing the tone of what the Guardians game should be. The iconic banter between the characters is here, and even Peter Quill's Fire mixtape featuring a bunch of different 80s tracks like The Final Countdown, Take Me On, and my personal favorite, Never Gonna Give You Up. I mean, come on. Who doesn't like Rick Roll with some alien baddies? Like, that's just how it has to be, right? The world of the Guardians in particular is fascinating. Players will be jumping from planet to planet, each with their own unique quirks with collectibles defined like cosmetics, written logs for some lore, and special items that open up bonus dialogue between members when you return back to the ship. In terms of locations, there are Marsh-like planets, another which is practically frozen over, space stations, and way more. There's actually a lot of variety here when it comes to the destinations and the locations you can go ahead and check out here in this game. The caveat here being that players will explore each location at the game's discretion. Yep, this is a linear experience, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, by the way. Don't get me wrong. It's not a bad thing at all. Choices come into play into the dialogue options, however. Here, players can choose to go with one team member's plan instead of another. This will actually slightly alternate how a mission will go. This means one player could go into a guns blazing shootout, while another could do a little bit more stealthy, sneakily segment type style, making each person's playthrough slightly different, which is definitely really cool. Even if everyone ends up at the same place when the credits roll, it just shows that it's nice to have these little changes that can, make the experience a little bit different for everybody. In terms of design, Guardians of the Galaxy gets a passing grade from us. As for the story side of things, the story is nothing groundbreaking or anything like that. Without revealing too much, we'll give a quick, brief introduction into the plot. The game's events take place a couple of years after a massive interstellar war that has lasting effects on the galaxy. Here we find the Guardians, who are kind of just a little bit in debt and are trying to make a quick buck. The team tries to pull a fast one on some of the rich collectors, but it ends badly. Like, really badly. Basically, the entire universe is in danger, so you know how typical your superhero stuff goes. It's time to get to work. Although some of this is partly the fault of the Guardians themselves, which, it's definitely a different thing. Well, not really, because let's face it, half the time when it comes to superhero games, generally is kind of the hero's fault sometimes. It's the way it is sometimes. With a slight sense of obligation, this ragtag team of mercenaries is going to snap into action and is just going to take on the threats. Hopefully. That is the hope, I guess. If you happen to have played any of the DX games, then you're going to feel right at home when it comes to how the developers have made this title. While it felt like the Avengers was definitely more of a diet of what the MCU Avengers were, Guardians is not the case. It feels authentic, the jokes are funny, and nothing really comes out forced. So I think fans are definitely going to be pleased when it comes to the performance of the Guardians. So overall, again, we didn't want to spoil too much of the story, but trust us when we say it's a really good one. All right, so we gave you the design and story, we gave you the gameplay, we gave you the presentation. Now, what are our own personal thoughts on this game? Well, in our personal opinion, Guardians of the Galaxy is a perfect example of why linear games still exist to this day. It feels like these days are plagued with endless clones of battle royales and open world titles, which, by the way, if you like those games, that's not a knock against you or anything, just you know, it's nice to mix it up a bit, you know? So it was really nice to actually see this game not be what we all thought it was going to be when it was originally announced. And honestly, when it comes to the way that this game was going to be represented, it is actually really nice to see how it is. Guardians is just that. It takes the humor and the charm that was popularized in the MCU, puts it into game form, which is really nice, at least for most people. Is this game perfect? No, by no means, but it's fun and it's entertaining. And it's definitely interesting because when you think of Square Enix's last Marvel project, Avengers, when you compare it to this, it's very different. And you know what? This is a time where we actually have to give Square some praise here, because regardless of what you think of Avengers, Guardians was actually done right. Now, this isn't going to stack up to Sony's most recent Marvel releases like Spider-Man and Miles Morales, but Guardians is a step in the right direction. So maybe we will get that Avengers game that we all want in the future. One thing we will also say though, if you're a streamer, unfortunately, it's going to suck because of the music, because so many copyright things, there is an option to turn it off, but it would have been nice if we didn't have to deal with that stuff. So I don't know, maybe 50 years in the future where we won't have to really worry about anything like that. So in conclusion, however, though, the combination of the feel of the game, the writing, the combat, and the story, we here at Five Nights Gaming Direct confidently can give this game an 8 out of 10. So overall, we're having a lot of fun with it. We really are. And with all that out of the way, this about wraps up our review. Will you be picking up Guardians of the Galaxy? We want to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. Or will you be waiting for a sale? Or if you happen to have Game Pass, right there for you. So whatever you decide, let us know your thoughts down below in the comments as always. And we're always curious to hear your thoughts and opinions on this. We will reply to you. So please let us know down below. By the way, one last thing we have to mention before heading off here. If you happen to pick up this game on PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, you will be able to upgrade for free. So when we eventually beat the pesky scalpers, curse you scalpers, you'll be able to play Guardians with no extra charge, which is pretty nice. It's too bad other games aren't really doing this anymore, but hey, it is what it is. So anyway, guys, with all that being said, I've been Tallen with Five Nights Gaming, and we'll see you in the next one. Johnny.